I'm only gonna talk about some of the most reliable accounts since there is so much stuff out there, real and fake alike. Before I say anything else, remember, don't believe everything you read, hear, or see. People make mistakes, people lie, people want money and popularity. Not every dinosaur sighting is real. In fact, very few are probably real. Not every image of dinosaurs in ancient artwork is real either. Many have been fabricated or falsely identified. We should do a lot of research before we say this or that is real or fake, because not everything is as it seems. These people who I'm going to talk about are well researched and reliable resources, and as I continue on, I'm sure you're going to agree with me. First off, we have Aristotle, also known as the father of biology. For those who don't know, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher who lived around 2,000 years ago. Aristotle was an incredible biologist for his time, breaking the mold and setting the standard for those who would come after him. He didn't just believe what people told him, but he would go to investigate and study things himself. His system of study was not perfect, but it was more logical and accurate than those of his peers. And in some ways, his method of studying biology is similar to the modern version. In Aristotle's book called Aristotle's History of Animals, he says this: "The eagle and the dragon are enemies, for the eagle feeds on serpents." Dragon in this case may just be a snake. We know that many raptors, including eagles, hunt snakes. But as we move on, we'll learn that he may be talking about the flying serpents that Herodotus described. Aristotle also says the glanus in shallow water is often destroyed by the dragon serpent. The glanus is a type of river-dwelling catfish. Some snakes do hunt catfish, so it's likely that he's talking about a kind of snake in this passage as well. While he does not talk about any crazy huge fire-breathing dragons, we can learn what were considered dragons or serpents in his time, being snake-like or reptilian creatures. We can also tell that dragon and serpent were normal terms that people used and not mythical beasts. But we're just getting started. Let's talk about Marco Polo. Marco Polo was a European who traveled around Asia, writing about what he experienced and what he saw. His writings are considered mostly true, but there are some weird things in his book that sound made up or false. Despite these things, scholars still consider his writings, for the most part, accurate. With that said, if we look a little deeper and we do a bit more research, we find that some of these weird things were in fact misunderstood or misinterpreted. For example, the unicorns he described were actually rhinos, and the ghosts he heard in the desert were not ghosts but were in fact resonant chords produced by the sand dunes when the sand shifts. Or in other words, when the wind would blow on the sand, it would create a ghostly sound, like the ghostly sounds we hear when it's very windy. Moving on, in his book, The Travels of Marco Polo, he gives a detailed description of a giant serpent or dragon and how the people hunted it. I'm only going to be reading the description, so if you want to read the rest of the passage, it's in chapter 40. "Here are seen huge serpents, 10 paces in length, 30 feet, and 10 spans girt of the body, about 8 feet. At the foreparts near the head, they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger, with eyes larger than a 4-penny loaf and very glaring. The jaws are wide enough to swallow a man, and teeth are large and sharp, and their whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any kind of animal can approach them without terror. Others are met with a smaller size, being 8, 6, or 5 paces long, and the following method is used for taking them. In the daytime, by reason of great heat, they lurk in caverns, from whence at night they issue to seek their food, and whatever beast they meet with and can lay hold of, whether tiger, wolf, or any other, they devour, after which they drag themselves towards some lake, spring of water, or river, in order to drink. By their motion in this way along the shore, and their vast weight, they make deep impression, as if a heavy beam had been drawn along the sands." This sounds a lot like a gigantic crocodile. The largest crocodilians that ever lived were the Sarcosuchus, Deinosuchus, and Purosaurus. They were around 30 to 36 feet long and about 5 to 7 feet wide. Unless he measured it when it was dead, it's unlikely Marco Polo actually measured the beast and is simply going off what he saw, which may be exaggerated or inaccurate as people sometimes do. But the fact that the measurements match up so well with the prehistoric crocs makes it seem less likely he was eyeballing his measurements, especially since we know that people did hunt these creatures and he may have had an opportunity to measure one. Moving on, they had short legs close to their head, much like modern crocs. Crocodiles have 5 toes, but 3 of its toes had claws. We also know that the prehistoric crocs had massive heads that could easily swallow any unsuspecting human, and their fossils also display incredibly sharp teeth. We also know when crocodiles walk, their tails drag along the sand, making a mark. And I have no doubt that a giant crocodile like Sarcosuchus would make a deep impression in the sand whenever it walked. Next on our list is Herodotus. Herodotus was a Greek historian and has been called the father of history. While Herodotus does get a lot right, sometimes he wrote down what people told him without investigating it or even believing it. He even expresses his doubts on certain occasions. In this case, not only did Herodotus hear about the dragons, but when he went to investigate, he saw them as well. We will be reading a passage from a book called The History of Herodotus. There is a place in Arabia, situated very near the city of Buto, to which I went on hearing of some winged serpents. When I arrived there, I saw the bones and spines of serpents, in such quantities as it would be impossible to describe. The form of the serpent is like that of a water snake, but has wings without feathers, and as like as possible to the wings of a bat. These sound a lot like pterosaurs. While parts of a pterosaur's body was covered with feather-like structures, its wings were bare, much like bats. Bats have furry bodies and bare wings. Some pterosaurs also looked quite serpent-like, like the Quetzalcoatlus and the Wukongopterus, but there are many other pterosaurs that also have long snake-like necks. Similarly to Aristotle, Herodotus said that certain birds would hunt these flying serpents. Moving on, we have Alexander the Great. Alexander was taught by Aristotle and also learned his methodology, so we can be fairly sure that he was not making this up. He reported encountering a giant serpent in India, and his encounters were described on the nature of animals. When Alexander threw some parts of India into a commotion and took possession of others, he encountered among many other animals a serpent which lived in a cavern and was regarded as sacred by the Indians, who paid it great and superstitious reverence. Accordingly, Indians went to all lengths imploring Alexander to permit nobody to attack the serpent, and he assented to their wish. Now, as the army passed by the cavern and caused a noise, the serpent was aware of it. It has, you know, the sharpest hearing and the keenest sight of all animals, and it hissed and snorted so violently that all were terrified and confounded. It was reported to measure 70 cubits, although it was not visible in all its length, for it only put its head out. At any rate, its eyes were said to have been the size of a large, round Macedonian shield. Starting off with the sound, snakes can hiss but not snort. Crocodiles can also hiss and grumble, but they still cannot snort. Dinosaurs, on the other hand, can make a plethora of sounds. Despite what you might have heard in Jurassic Park or pop culture, dinosaurs probably didn't roar. It's more likely that they would have been able to hiss, grumble, click, rattle, snort, and even chirp. It was reported to Alexander that the animal was 70 cubits long, which is about 105 feet long. I don't really trust this report because it was a second-hand report made by the indigenous people. I highly doubt they were able to measure the beast and simply eyeballed the measurement, thus causing the measurement to be over-exaggerated. Furthermore, there has never been a predatory animal that was 100 feet long. Some sauropods were 100 feet long, but it's unlikely they would dwell in caves, as they were probably eating all day long. But we do know that the animal appeared to be massive simply by poking its head out of the cave. There is something strange about the report. and that is the description of the eyes. The eyes are said to have been the size of a large Macedonian shield, which is about 2 feet in diameter. No animal on Earth or in the ocean has eyes this big. The largest eyes in the animal kingdom belong to the giant squid, which are 10 inches in diameter. There is one way we can make sense of this, and that would be eye spots. Eye spots are an eye-like marking found on butterflies, cats, birds, fish, snakes, and other reptiles. It would have eye spots near its eyes, thus making its eyes look bigger. It could have also had eye spots on another part of the body as well. An example would be the Carnotaurus. This dinosaur was a very slim snake-like dinosaur, even having snake-like jaws that were able to swallow prey larger than its mouth. It also had 2 flat horns on its head that were likely used for mating and threat displays. But one of its most interesting features are its tiny arms. The arms were able to move back and forth and may have had extra skin to make it an effective display. It may have had eye spots on its arms, thus making it look larger and more intimidating than it actually was. There are certain artifacts that we should take note of, though we should still remain skeptical since we don't know the context or meaning of these artifacts. This is an impression of a Mesopotamian cylinder seal that has animals that look very similar to sauropods. The only thing that throws me off is the mythical beast that's flying in between the tails. Another artifact is the engravings on Bishop Bell's tomb in Carlisle Cathedral, UK. Some people argue that it's a coincidence that the creatures look like a sauropod. Others say it's a forgery, but it's very unlikely that it would be a forgery. Even the scholars say so. Others have also suggested that the artist was an amateur paleontologist who saw the bones of a dinosaur and engraved them as he thought they would look. This is also very unlikely, especially since it depicts one of the sauropods with a tail club, and paleontologists did not discover sauropods with tail clubs until 1979, many years after the engravings were made in 1496. Moreover, before the advent of modern paleontology, most people were not good at recreating dinosaurs and even some modern animals just from the bones. This is where we get some of our fake dragons and fake mythical creatures, because people would sometimes take multiple fossils and combine them to make some kind of fake, false recreation of a creature. Those were some notable findings, but before I end the video, I want to cover some fake dinosaur artifacts. These black stones were forgeries that someone used to make money. These figures are also fake, also used in the scheme to make money. These 2 cave paintings were simply misinterpreted as dinosaurs. With age, a lot of the details have been lost and thus confused the eager creationists who claimed these were proof of dinosaurs living with men. Finally, for my last example, we have a rhino misidentified as a stegosaurus. Anyways, that's all that I found that was reliable and noteworthy. Remember, don't just believe everything you see or hear. Dig deep, find the truth. And to conclude, dragons are not only found in the Bible, but also in every culture and language. And if dragons are found in every culture, language, and people, there must be some kind of truth to it. And the Bible confirms this. Thank you guys for watching this video. Ask God to open your eyes and give you His revelation, that His truth is revealed in your life, because Jesus, only Jesus, is the way, the truth, and the life. He will show you the truth, but it is up to you to accept it. And once you accept the truth, then you will be set free. Anyways, God bless and have an amazing day.